6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How about we do it again?
6, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think I followed it.
Okay, let's try one more
I
time.
definitely
Ready?
I can move you. Making reveal. Making reveal.
Say 6,
6,
5,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the 21st episode of Rank and Review. Zombies from around the world. Global zombies. We've got zombies from New Zealand, zombies from Africa, zombies from America, zombies from France. From all around the world, we're going to see different people reacting to the zombie apocalypse. Some of these movies are funny, some of them are serious, but together I think it makes an interesting group, and it's always exciting for me to be talking zombies. We're also going to be hearing my returning guest, Karen Giese, who is a returning champion, the so far only person to go 6 for 6 with me in Rank and Review. As usual, I'd like to warn everybody that there will be spoilers and there will be coarse language. My name's Larry Parsons. I'm your host and random Canadian. Thank you so much for listening to Rank and Review. I hope you enjoy the show. We have our returning champion, Karen Giese, coming back for the 21st episode of Rank and Review.
Yep.
If this episode was a person, it would be illegal to drink anywhere in the world. Is episode 21?
It would. You are correct. Yes.
So it's exciting to have you back.
Excellent.
I'm very thrilled.
Me too.
And I've got a lot of positive feedback on the bug episode.
Yay.
I
It was a
think-
great episode.
It was fun.
I enjoyed that episode.
Yeah, and I think you were well matched for it.
I think so.
And
yes.
We mentioned briefly zombies in the episode, and I
Yeah.
think if you listen to it, there's this moment where I ask if you like zombies, and you say that you love zombies, and there's just a little quiet moment where I think we fell in love with each other just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a
I
little
think
bit.
so too, Larry. Nice.
So we promised the zombie episode would
Yes.
come, and here we are. Our champion Rank and Reviewer.
Is
What
that
is
the
it?
right song?
That's the
Okay.
Rocky song, isn't
Oh, okay. I thought that was the Butter song.
it? Either way, I like it a lot.
Okay.
What is it that you particularly love about zombies? You said you loved them, so
I do. I just pretty much love anything otherworldly.
Right.
I am a big, huge nerd in that regard. Pretty much you name it, and I love it. But zombies in particular, it's leaving of the self and still being functional, in air quotes,
Yeah.
is really interesting to me, especially as a scientist, because I think that's completely impossible. And yet, some of these stories give really plausible explanations as to why things are happening.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
There's different approaches people take to the zombie genre. Sometimes they don't want it to be too supernatural. It's more like a virus, or it's in the Wreck series we find out that there are people actually being possessed. But the basic ingredient, I think, to make it a quote zombie movie is if you're bit, you become one, and that it's basically a group of survivors being sieged.
Yes.
And usually, I prefer it if it's a global epidemic.
I
A lot of
agree.
times
I
these
agree.
are little isolated pockets, but I like the idea of this small group of survivors. This is their story, and the whole world is dealing with this, but we're just going to follow this group of people and see how they deal with this catastrophe. Right?
Do you think they've made any zombie movies without any survivors?
Without any survivors
Yeah.
at all? Absolutely, they have.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Do tell.
I think we're going to discuss one of them today, girl.
Indeed.
Spoilers! That's okay, we do have a spoiler warning and a coarse language warning, so
Yep.
hopefully we are not as divisive as you and I were on Bug on any of these, but if you feel the need to unload on one of these movies, you can feel free to use whatever language you feel is appropriate.
All right. I will try and curb my tongue a little bit, though.
The other thing that I personally like about zombies, and this is getting more to the philosophical sort of thing, is the confrontation with death, literally. These are dead people in our concept, whatever we can wrap our brains around what death is.
Yeah.
But they're not our friends anymore. They're not our family. They're just like hollowed out, slowly rotting corpses. And all of us are going to become that. And basically we're sort of forced to look that in the eye in zombie movies. And ones that take themselves seriously anyway.
Yeah.
There's some that are a little bit more wacky than others, but in sort of the more survival-oriented Walking Dead sort of vibe, Dawn of the Dead vibe, zombies, yeah. Anyway, the 6 movies that we are going to discuss.
Yes.
Are we ready to go there? Right.
Go.
All right. From Peter Jackson and from New Zealand, because this is a global flavored zombie, Dead Alive.
Yes, it is.
Which is an absolutely bonkers movie. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that.
Okay.
From one of my personal favorite directors out there, Mr. Danny Boyle, 28 Days Later.
Agreed.
The basically grandpappy of all zombie movies. There were zombie movies before this, but Night of the Living Dead by George Romero is sort of the tentpole with which...
It's like the epitome of...
It is the
early
zombie movie.
It is. It is.
We've got a French zombie movie called The Horde. It's about a bunch of renegade police officers trying to take some personal revenge on some gangsters, and their little clash gets interrupted by a zombie epidemic.
Yes, it does.
These things do happen. We have Cemetery Man, starring Rupert Everett, and
Yes, we do.
a lot of European actors, which I'm looking forward to having a discussion of. And last but not least, we have The Dead, which is a zombie movie set in Africa.
Yeah.
It brings us back to the slow-moving kind of creepy zombies.
Yeah.
A lot of the more modern zombies seem to favor the fast-running zombies. And I think that 28 Days Later and the remake of Dawn of the Dead are largely the 2 movies that are responsible for making that. But
I think so, yeah.
do you have a preference? Do you like them fast or slow?
You know, it really depends on the movie. I can absolutely appreciate the slow movings, and because they're creepy, and they like, although I can't quite understand how they ever catch anybody, because you can see them coming and they're moving slow, but yeah.
Well, I look at it this way. I mean, sooner or later we have to stop and rest and
True.
and sleep somewhere.
True.
Zombies don't take snack breaks. They don't.
They do take snack breaks, actually.
Well, I guess they don't stop on the road and open a bag of chips.
They
is what
don't.
I mean,
No.
they don't stop what they're doing. They go. They don't
Yeah.
sleep. They don't whatever. Anytime you stop to sleep, anytime you stop to do anything, they're gonna sooner or later be around you. So you have to keep moving in this world, and that's what keeps things difficult. If you stay in one place for too long, you're gonna get boxed in, and
true.
it doesn't matter how slow they are.
True.
What I like about the slow zombies is that it's a survivable scenario, I think.
Very survivable.
If they are like 28 Days Later or super aggressive,
Yeah. Lightning
running
fast.
full tilt at you, breaking through walls to get at you, I don't think we got a chance.
No.
I don't think we got a chance at all.
No.
I think that the other ones would be bad news as well, but I think that there would be pockets of humanity that would survive.
I'm thinking yes.
Anyway, are you ready to get started on our global zombie adventures?
Started.
Let's do it.
You can pray.
I kick ass for the Lord.
You can plead. You can beg for mercy.
Help! Someone!
But nothing you can do will stop it.
There's thousands of them!
Because how do you kill something that's already dead? Trimark Pictures presents a modern masterpiece of horror.
Your mother, oh my God!
Dead Alive.
Party's over.
Okay, from the director of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Peter Jackson,
Yes.
comes an absolutely batshit insane zombie movie called Dead Alive. The plot elements of which concern a sort of meek young fellow who's trying to have a romance with a nice lady he meets in a quaint little New Zealand town, but whose life is sort of being crushed by his overbearing mother. And this is further complicated when said overbearing mother is bitten by a rat monkey and starts to exhibit zombie behavior. He at first tries to cover this up and tries to keep a little zoo of zombies in his basement, but sooner or later things do escalate and go out of control, and our hero is forced to deal with Mummy once and for all. What did you think of Dead Alive?
Finding words to describe how I felt about this is a little challenging.
Okay.
I did not like this movie.
Fair enough.
This, it was very, like, as far as the creatures, the zombified mom and friends are concerned, and the rat monkey, they looked very Muppet-ish to me, and I have a very healthy fear of Muppets. I hate Muppets. I think they're, like, kind of creepy. So
we have to do a puppet-themed episode.
You will not get me to do a puppet-themed anything, because I really, really dislike them. But, and I mean, this movie, granted, yes, if you look at it from a humorous point of view, it is very amusing. Yeah, it just wasn't my kind of movie.
This definitely leans to the sillier end of the zombie spectrum.
Quite. And I take my zombies seriously,
yes.
so...
I prefer them serious, but I like a good zom-com. I'm not going to turn my back on a quality zom-com.
Yeah.
But what I think distinguishes this movie, and I think what is sort of the interesting thing, especially when you look at where Peter Jackson has gone subsequently, is just how demented this movie really is.
Very
the
demented.
Level of insanity and depravity that are included in every frame, just wedged into this movie.
Yep.
Even like just partial like takeaway scenes when the conniving uncle steps into the bathroom, we follow him into the bathroom, and he passes a kidney stone. Just throw that in, because we
Why
needed
not?
something more gross.
Yes, yes.
There is an infamous sequence involving pudding, where he's got all of the zombies strapped around the table, and his mother is slowly becoming a zombie, and she's got sort of guests over for tea, and he's trying to cover up the fact that she's a zombie, and her ear falls off into her pudding, and she consumes it.
Yes. I am bodily cringing as we speak about
Just
it.
saying it out loud is wow. There's an entire sequence where this man does battle with not a zombie, but the intestines of a zombie.
Yes.
For me, though, I think the thing about this movie that's going to make it a little bit for the ages is a sequence where the star, I believe his name is Timothy Baum. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Timothy Baum decides that enough is enough, and he goes out to the shed and he grabs the lawnmower.
Fantastic. Yes.
This is a movie that when it was originally released on video, they mutilated it as far as the violence and some of the content of the movie. I remember telling my friend Scott, "You should really see this movie. It's amazing." And we were in Edmonton. We ran up to the Blockbuster and we rented it. And I ended up really regretting that I had talked him into this, because the movie that we rented was not the movie that I had seen.
Oh, really?
The movie that you saw is the unfettered, uncut version. And
that explains
I
things.
completely understand why someone would watch this and say, this is utterly repellent.
Yeah,
because you know what?
Completely.
It kind of is.
It's,
but again, the imagination of it, like, I don't think anybody but Peter Jackson could have come up with this movie. Not only does he kill like hundreds of zombies with this lawnmower, but the floor is literally so slick with blood that in order to keep traction, he has to stand on body parts while he's doing it. It is batshit crazy.
I will... You mentioned earlier the word depraved.
Yes.
I believe that is well suiting for this movie. It's, I'm also not really a fan of gore. Mm-hmm. And this was chock full of gore.
That's going to work against you in this movie.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely.
What I will say is that, like, it is completely balls out. It doesn't pretend to be anything but what it is.
No.
It is straight to the wall for 80 minutes. We're going to push it as far as we possibly can. And some of the special effects, especially considering the low budget and the limited means with which it was being produced, are very impressive. Some of the kills are very impressive.
I do like a good kill. I really do.
It's not scary, though.
It's not scary. Not even a little tiny bit. It's gross.
It's gross.
Yes.
It's sort of like a sort of slap your knee, a Halloween night guffaw, oh my god, that
Yes.
just happened type of movie.
Yeah.
As far as making you think, as far as getting under your skin, as far as exploring the world of what a real apocalyptic scenario would be like,
Yeah.
no. That's not what this
No.
movie is. But to be fair, that's not what this movie's trying to be.
No, I kind of feel like this movie should have been in the what the fuck category.
It would qualify, absolutely.
Absolutely.
There's a few
Yeah.
other Peter Jackson movies that qualified as well.
Yeah.
In one of my what the fuck categories, we will have Meet the Feebles, which is a movie, if you have a problem with puppets, you
Oh.
will never be able to watch.
I will not watch it.
Absolutely.
No, no.
But it's a, like, hard R-rated version of the Muppet Show with all of these crazy
Ew.
puppets, and they have, like, Vietnam flashbacks, and they're junkies, and they're, like... It's more depraved by a significant measure than Dead Alive.
I will take your word for it. And that's as far as it goes.
And that's what's really fascinating when you think that the guy who made these completely, like, lunatic
jeez.
movies actually was able to rein it in enough to tell, you know, Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah.
You know, so that,
Which were awesome.
I'm a big fan. I'm
Me
a big
too.
fan. I know
Me
they're
too.
divisive in Nerd Kingdom, but nerddom.
Yes,
but
yeah.
I'm a big favor of Lord of the Rings.
Me too, yeah.
In fact, I think once the last Hobbit movie comes out, I'm just going to do a rank and review on all 6 Tolkien movies. So
What?
we'll see who gets that prize.
Oh my god, you're gonna have like people clawing for these. That's awesome.
But how do you rank them? How do you rank them?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Oh.
Anyway, is there
right.
anything else that we need to say about Dead or Alive? Have we been suitably mean to that? I mean, I don't want to scare people away. I think if you were into sort of like over the top violence and an energetic movie, it is that, and it doesn't ask you to take it seriously. Like this
At
movie
all.
is completely crazy.
Absolutely crazy. Well, I mean, most of the movies that I like, fellow friends don't like. So a lot of people say I have bad taste in movies, but this one was horrible. So people might like it.
See, I wouldn't say it was horrible. I would say it is what it is.
Sure.
For certain days. I mean, there are movies that are just gore that I would dismiss and say are horrible.
Yeah.
And this movie is chock full of gore, but I don't think it's horrible. I think that, for me, there's enough good things in it for fans of sort of that violent B subgenre. That's fine. Sure. And like I said, it is winking at you. It is trying to be funny. If this was just trying to be a straight zombie movie that was getting off on all this... It's sort of like that just happened. They keep on trying to make you sort of slap your forehead and go, what?
Yes.
The priest who kicks ass for the Lord?
Exactly.
You
Hence
remember
the what
this?
the fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a zombie problem in a graveyard, and this priest shows up, and then out of nowhere has all these ninja moves.
Yeah.
Why?
As most priests do.
I guess, because he had a lot of time to kill.
Goes with the collar. Ninja collar.
Not for all tastes, but if this sounds like something that would appeal to you, it probably will. And if it sounds like something that would repel you,
it probably will. All right, I will just say that this is probably one of the best movies of this type then.
Okay.
Just not for me.
Not for Karen,
Not
but
for me, yeah.
maybe for someone else.
So who are you?
Wake up today in hospital. I wake up and I'm hallucinating.
I've got some bad news.
They're infected.
Infected!
Father.
Infected with what?
Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
It's the blood. There's something in the blood.
Lesson 1. You never go anywhere alone unless you've got no choice.
Hello?
Okay.
Great.
Danny Boyle.
Danny Boyle.
He's come up in the world. He's an Oscar winner. He's got his Best Picture for Slumdog Millionaire.
Oh, yes.
He is, for me, like a very consistent director. Like even the movies that I don't think are 100% successful are worth watching. I think that he makes great movies. And although this is playing to my hand because I love horror movies and I love zombie movies, in a catalog full of fantastic movies, 28 Days Later might be my favorite Danny Boyle movie.
Me too.
I know that seems like strong words, but
No.
I love this movie. I love it.
Yeah,
And I remember the experience of seeing this in the theater for the first time.
Jealous.
And being just utterly rattled and holding onto my seat like I was in a roller coaster.
Nice.
So it's going to be a positive review from me
Yes.
for 28 days later. But in the nerd world debate, I've seen people on IMDb and other pages going off about, this isn't a zombie movie. This is an epidemic movie.
Yeah.
They are infected with rage, and these aren't zombies, so stop saying that they're zombies. And they get really upset about it. Technically speaking, yeah, they're right. This is a rage virus.
Because they don't die first.
You don't have to shoot them in the head to kill them.
Ooh,
they're not walking corpses. They're not reanimated. They don't have that supernatural element. What it does have to make it qualify for me as a zombie movie is the element, if you get bit, you become one of them.
Yeah.
It's like a plague that's going all over. People are getting locked into areas and sieged by all of these creatures.
Yeah.
And all of the rules more or less apply to Zombie World as to this. That and the fact that this movie is full of references to zombie movies that are not accidental, that are literal. It was almost like they really wanted to make a zombie movie, but they were had too much integrity to make an honest zombie movie and look at themselves in the eye. So they dressed it up as a rage virus. I will also point out, and I will let us get to this review, but once we move on to the sequel, this virus thing gets forgotten more and more.
Yeah.
We start seeing zombies running around with their guts hanging out, and I don't know how that exactly works with the
evolution.
With the story they're telling. In 28 days later, yes, these are people. You don't have to shoot them in the head. No. If they don't feed, eventually they will get weak and starve to death. They are people, but...
The anorexic one on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But what they do have that other zombies don't have, and that was sort of shocking when you first watched this movie when it came out, I think it was 2000 or 2001, these zombies run at you full tilt, or these infected, if you prefer, run at you full tilt, and they spew blood from their mouths. And if that stuff touches you, if that gets in your eyes or your mouth or in you in any of your cuts, within seconds, not days, not hours, seconds, you're one of the team.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, this is a long, expansive prologue again, but the plot as it is basically is like most zombie movies. It's a survival scenario.
Yeah.
Cillian Murphy, an Irish actor. I believe this is the first time I saw him.
I think so too.
Is it Cillian or Cillian Murphy? I don't know exactly how you pronounce the name. He wakes up in a hospital that is empty and finds himself lost in a world of chaos.
Yeah.
K2, let's talk about 28 Days Later.
Okay. This is one of my favorite all-time movies.
Yeah.
I love this movie. I love everything about this movie. I love the fast-moving zombies. I love the whole rage aspect. Because honestly, yes, being a scientist, I love science. But I also am a firm believer in if you mess with something too much, you can go too far. And this movie is, I don't know, I think it's kind of a commentary on that fact. Like, they messed with things that they shouldn't have been messing with, and now the whole world is screwed.
I also like that there's not some evil scientist who's sort of mashing his hands together. The scientists were trying to find a way to treat aggression.
Exactly.
And so their intentions were good. And the environmentalists were trying to free the monkeys who they saw as being tortured.
Yeah,
so their intentions were good.
Absolutely.
But between those two good intentions,
badness.
The world is threatened by this epidemic of rage.
Yeah.
So I like that there's no obvious bad guy. Everybody's a victim in this movie. The infected are victims, and the survivors are victims.
To a point.
Well, we finally start to meet some of these. Some of the survivors turn into monsters as they come.
Absolutely.
That's a theme that I definitely want to talk about when we get into Night of the Living Dead as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think some of the faces that I recognized in here were people like Christopher Eccleston. Sort of a big British actor. He started in Danny Boyle's first movie, Shallow Grave. He shows up in the second act as this guy who's sort of leading a cadre of military blokes, keeping them alive.
I can't imagine. He's so squishy.
Sorry, Brendan Gleeson. He plays this father that our survivors meet up with, and the relationship established between Gleeson and his daughter, I think, is very sweet and a nice counterbalance to the ugliness of the world that we see.
Absolutely.
Naomi Harris plays this woman that our hero Cillian Murphy meets and basically introduces him to the world.
Yeah.
And the movie's really good at keeping you on your toes. From the very opening scene,
Yeah.
naked guy wakes up on a table, what's going on?
Exactly. Yeah.
From that to empty London, what's going on?
Yeah.
From that to being rescued from this attack by these two survivors, what's going on? And just when you pause to get oriented,
Yeah.
one of our two survivors is basically
Done.
executed by the other.
Absolutely.
They don't really give you a lot of time to get your breath in this movie.
They don't.
And,
That's what I like about it.
yeah.
It's,
And,
yeah.
I think the only time it loses ground is when it stops to take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a criticism. I think you necessarily have to at times.
You need it. You need it. Yeah.
But I'm remembering a scene where they stop and see some stallions running in a field, and
Yeah.
everybody sort of pauses and, peaceful,
Yeah.
no zombies. But it sort of almost belonged in a different movie. But
It did.
It was good for us. It was good for the audience to take a breath, because deeper into the movie, the darker things start to get.
I think those moments were also necessary for the characters in order for them to realize we're still human beings.
Mm-hmm.
We still need this relationship with what's going on around us, even though like most of what's going on around us is like all shot to hell. But
Everybody
you need that.
Everybody you know is
Absolutely.
dead. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Another similar scene with that, which is also, I see sort of as a bit of a tribute to Dawn of the Dead,
Mm-hmm.
is when they stop and have a little shopping spree
Yes.
in the big like grocery store.
Yeah.
And the Brendan Gleeson character just leaves his credit card on the
Yeah.
counter, so no harm, no foul.
Exactly. Yep.
Yay. But then counterbalance this to horrific violence.
Absolutely horrific.
Couple things that I would warn people about watching this movie. I mean, it is graphic and violent, but if you're into zombie movies, I think that you have to come to the table knowing that.
It's the epitome.
Yeah.
I love this movie.
But shaky camera. There is an
Yes.
element of shaky camera to this movie, and
Yeah.
some people do not like that.
No,
When you get
no.
into the close combat and it gets crazy, these guys are so aggressive, and I find that the movement of the camera sort of puts you in the head of the infected.
Agreed.
Some people
Yeah.
don't like it. This movie was also shot digitally. It was one of the first like wide release movies that was shot digitally, and it looks gorgeous.
Absolutely gorgeous.
There is one sequence that takes place in the rain, which I can't really even find something to compare it to.
No.
Because it's a scene of like great suspense and violence, but at the same time you're taking in that action sequence. The images are so strong.
They have to use chubby rain, don't they?
Yeah, they probably tested all sorts of different rain just to get the drops focused in so perfectly.
Yeah.
There's not a weak link in the performances anywhere
really
along the
not.
chain. I can't
No.
find.
No.
The movie does switch gears. I would say in the second half, it's sort of like a group of survivors surviving the zombie landscape for the first half.
Yeah.
And then the second half is when they settle into the more military people who have settled in and are surviving the situation and how it has changed them.
It's the juxtaposition of what can happen to different types of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that part.
This is where we get into the much more, I think, Romero world of zombies.
Quite, yeah.
This is where the zombies are an obstacle. They're
Yeah.
something that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
They're almost like an element of nature, like a freak storm or
Absolutely.
something that you have to deal with, but that practically you can.
Yeah.
The real villains
Absolutely real
become
villains.
other people.
Absolutely, yeah.
They are much more of a threat
Mm-hmm.
than the zombies, as we find out with this cadre of military blokes who have been alone for many months, or I guess not only a month now.
Yeah, only a month.
If anything, I guess their decline is shockingly quick then.
You know, I don't think so.
No?
I had this discussion with one of my military brothers,
Yeah.
actually, and he was of the opinion that would not happen. But I actually do think that would happen. Especially if you're a bunch of guys alone. Women, we can go to sperm banks.
Yeah.
You know, we can still get pregnant and continue the population and continue reproducing.
Yeah.
For guys alone, that's the end of the human race,
Yeah.
as far as they know.
Right.
So, of course, you know, it's going to come down to raping and forcing and
Basically, the idea
all the
is
nastiness.
the only
No
way...
offense to any guys out there, but
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know where I land on that.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm a fair example of the type of male that they're talking about
Yeah, I don't
here.
think so either. Larry Squeegee.
There's a fairly macho, aggressive characteristic that a lot of people who are sort of military types possess.
Yeah.
And I think the basic theme is, or what they're exploring here in the movie, is that in order to maintain authority and control over these guys, he had to make a horrible promise to them.
Absolutely.
And that promise
horrific
was that he was
promise.
going to deliver them women.
Yeah.
And yikes. And again, if it's 28 days after the virus, and I don't know, maybe a week or two since he wakes up to this is like 6 weeks before that, like this entire group of guys are basically dedicating their lives to rape and servitude.
Yeah.
I mean, for me that feels a little bit quick, but in the context of the movie, I completely believe it.
Absolutely, 100%.
And
I mean, yeah, I would like to give the human race a little more
the benefit
credit.
of the doubt. Maybe I'm wrong. It's an interesting survival scenario too, in that it's not an issue of dwindling resources. When everybody's wiped off the table in a matter of 48 hours, there's a lot of food and a lot of weapons just laying around.
Aplenty.
So it's what you need to survive, and what those guys were missing apparently was sex, I guess.
But not necessarily sex, but the big picture. You just said it. It's what they need to survive.
Yeah.
You need women to survive
Yeah.
as a species. You know, without... Yay, girly girls.
Yeah.
But yeah, without women, the species dies.
Yeah.
So I can get it. I can understand it.
Yeah, it's a tough old world that we're introduced to, but I certainly did hate all of those characters, and
Me too,
really,
me too.
you know, was cheering for Jim and the fellow survivors to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
We talk about spoilers in this show.
Yes, we do.
So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the end of the movie.
Okay.
Without getting too much specifics, they get away from this group of military folks, and Jim is badly injured.
Yes.
And we catch up with them surviving in the middle of England somewhere, trying to wave down a rescue plane. Mm-hmm. The original ending to the film.
I watched it.
You saw that?
Yes.
Yeah, Jim died. He was shot.
Yeah.
And as much as I understand the impulse to give us that happier, feel-good ending, especially considering how dour and dark the whole movie was, I really loved the idea of the bookend, and I assume the author of the script did too, is that this starts with Jim waking up in a hospital bed.
Yeah.
And it ends with him dying after saving his friends, but dying on another hospital bed.
Yeah.
It seemed like that was the ending that seemed more right. But
it did. But I really liked Jim.
Yeah, and I really liked him too. And there is a sequel to this movie, 28 weeks later. And some people not big on it. I'm actually quite a fan. I think it's a solid sequel. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as this movie, but I think it is a solid sequel.
Yeah.
And in the horror genre, to say a solid sequel is, you know, you're already beating the tide to a certain degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a survival horror movie. There's, like I said, not a lot of humor to it, but this is what I like to get into when I'm talking zombies.
Me
this
too.
is what would I do if I was in that scenario.
Yeah.
And
I for one think I would kick ass.
I believe that you would. I might end up fetal in a corner.
I'll come help you.
I used to fantasize about the zombie apocalypse in my younger foolish years, and how cool it would be to be locked in the Costco and have a palace of food at my disposal. But growing up and having 2 kids now, it's a less fun scenario.
Probably a less fun scenario.
To imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine raising a kid in a zombie environment, because that kid can't cry, or else she's ringing the dinner bell, right?
Exactly.
So, the apocalypse that we're exposed to does pull no punches, though. We see a lot of bodies of people laying down. The infected are horrifying, the way they seem to like vomit this vile blood out at you.
Yeah.
It's just,
and like getting infected just from a drop.
A drop.
Like the dad with the
Brendan
crow.
Gleeson character.
Brendan Gleeson.
One drop of blood catches him in the eye.
Yeah.
And they did a great job of making us instantly like that character.
Yeah.
And because we instantly liked him, I knew he wasn't going to make the movie.
Oh, me
and
too.
even though I knew this, my heart was still a little bit broken when he went down.
Me too.
But yeah, he was just an earnest, nice fellow, and all he wanted to do was look after his daughter, and he was just a decent guy who we liked. So
he was Mad Eye Moody, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yes. Mad Eye Moody. Mad Eye Moody went down again. Damn it.
Is there anything else we want to say about 28 Days Later?
Only that if you're going to see any zombie movie, make sure it's this one. This is.
If you're only going to watch one and then one and done, this is your choice?
Exactly, yep. Absolutely, this is my choice.
Welcome to a night of total terror. Night of the living dead. The dead who live on living flesh.
The dead whose haunted souls hunt the living. The living whose bodies are the only food for these ungodly creatures. Night of the living dead. More shattering than your strangest nightmare.
Yes.
Zombies as we understand them, as far as the, they're gonna ghouls that'll eat you, and that if you get bitten, you turn into one of them, were basically established by Night of the Living Dead, from George Romero.
Yeah.
If you asked Romero himself, he would openly cop to saying that he was stealing from Richard Matheson. He liked the concept of I Am Legend and this lone survivor surviving against this plague of basically vampires in I Am Legend.
You mean the Omega Man?
The Omega Man, it is.
Yeah.
As most people seem to fondly recall it. So he switched it up and made them ghouls, as he called them in this. And working on weekends with a bunch of friends, he slowly shot over about 2 years Night of the Living Dead. Mm-hmm. It concerns a group of survivors who are holed up in a farmhouse as zombies continue to siege them. They are not far from a cemetery and a couple of small communities. And the longer they stay there, the more of these things come and the greater their problem is. Mm-hmm. Between them, this group of 5 people or 6 people, they are tasked to find the key to a gas pump, unlock the gas pump, fill the cars with gas, and drive away. And what we see here in this movie is that they can't do it.
No.
It's not a hard thing to do. Really, find a set of keys, open the gas pump, fill the car with gas, drive away. 5 strangers, they cannot do it. And I think that's the real sort of social commentary crux of this movie. The main character is Dwayne Jones, the black man.
Yeah.
It's one of the first times that you'd see sort of the central figure in the horror movie being black. But so a lot of people read a lot into that. Whereas I didn't see it so much to be about, racism as it was about people in general and their inability to work together, even when it is life or death.
Yeah.
So, not a feel-good number, but a very memorable movie. And in spite of the fact that it was made in the 60s and is in grainy black and white, it is as relevant today as it ever was.
Absolutely. I had read, actually, it was just the anniversary that happened.
Not too long ago.
Yeah, not so long ago. This year, actually. No, last year.
Okay.
2013. I've had these movies for a while. But yeah, it's supposed to be, or what the popular theory was, that it was a commentary on the war, it's 1968, right?
Yeah.
So, it kind of makes sense, battle without, battle within type of thing.
And the sort of madness with which it is, the problem is dealt with. I also think it's an interesting movie because it's the first time that we sort of see it from a media perspective. A lot of this movie are these people listening to the radio and listening to reports of what's going on, or huddling around the TV and trying to figure out, like we would during a catastrophe, what the fuck is happening?
Exactly.
What are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
Are we doing the right things?
Yeah.
Our main characters, I guess, would be Barbara and Ben. Barbara was visiting the gravesite of her mother when she and her brother were attacked.
Yeah.
Her brother lost his life, and she made it to this house, but I don't think her sanity made it to the house.
No, I don't think so
she
either.
basically spends most of this movie as kind of a blathering, crazy person. This would bother me in as far as, she's fairly ineffective for a large portion of the movie. But I also think that is a not inappropriate response to the environment with which she has found herself. And that I almost wish more movies would find that not every character has the equipment to deal with a catastrophe and would go catatonic. It doesn't make for a very interesting character, but I think in a survival scenario, people would freak out.
I agree with you. What I did find hard to stomach with her character was the fact that it was a woman. And I mean, for the time, that's how a lot of women were portrayed, as not being very courageous and falling apart, the whole hysteria thing.
she's babbling and she gets smacked a couple times because she's not making any sense.
Exactly. I mean, being a woman of today, you know.
I understand.
And that I could kick ass in a zombie apocalypse.
I'm going to your house when they come.
Right? Yeah.
Here's the thing, Karen. George Romero agrees with you. Because when he wrote the remake for this, that Tom Savini directed in 1990, so that Romero could finally actually make some money off of this title, which she hadn't, he rewrote the Barbara character completely. And she becomes basically the one rational character in the group.
Yeah.
And she's the one lone voice of reason. Fighting against the tide of insanity. So he, I think, kind of apologized for that element. Again, maybe it's unfortunate, maybe you're right, that it was a female character, but it didn't bother me as much that she freaked out, because her brother just died in front of her in a place that she was already scared of before this happened. And all of a sudden, she's in a new world that she's not prepared to deal with, where she's very likely going to be eaten alive. And she just shuts down. I buy it. I
think maybe because I work very well under pressure.
Absolutely.
And I just, there comes a point where you have to make a decision whether or not your life is falling apart around you. There comes a point where you have to make a decision, fight or flight. And I'm a fight.
And so is Ben, who is our lead character.
Exactly.
He shows up. He's got nothing but fumes in his tank, and he wants to get to that gas tank. And he assumes that this woman lives there, but she's unable to communicate to him. So it's very frustrating for him. And then to later find out that in the meantime there were 4 people hiding in the basement listening to this racket who were just too scared to even come out and talk to them.
And try and help.
Further frustrating.
Exactly.
The most obvious obstacle is Mr. Cooper. He's the he's the archetypical asshole character who does and says the wrong thing at the wrong time. In a lot of other movies, you will find this character who crops up, and you will find I will refer to him as the Cooper of the movie. As far as I'm concerned, this is the quintessential take on that. But with a little bit of a wrinkle. Speaking as a parent, I am not unsympathetic to all of his perspective. I mean, he doesn't know that his daughter is bitten, and he doesn't know that she's going to turn into a ghoul, but he knows that she's sick and that something bad's happening, and that he has to be the protective father figure. He goes about it in about as stupid and arrogant and asshole-ish a way as possible. But in his head, he's doing all of this to protect his daughter.
I can see that. I can see it.
I still found myself hoping for his death in this movie because he was such a dick. And that remains true. Romero felt no need to soften, Cooper when he remade the movie in 1990.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe because, that exists. Whereas I would like to think that type of catatonic response hopefully wouldn't exist.
Would be somewhat limited. Those people wouldn't survive, you wouldn't think.
They wouldn't survive without somebody like Ben.
But there are leaders and there are followers, and both Ben and Cooper sort of take the leader position, and everyone else sort of finds themselves at odd between these two power heads. And unfortunately, the people who actually lived in the house have all passed away. There's relatives of one of them that are hiding in the basement, but he has no idea where the key would be. And meanwhile, all this bickering is going on, more and more and more, and dead people are showing up. For the time it was made, too, it had a real visceral reaction as far as when people get eaten, they show these zombies eating meat off of bones, and there's a couple of naked zombies walking around there. It was all very taboo.
Very taboo.
Yikes. And some of it's tame by today's standards, but some of it isn't. Some of it is still pretty nasty, I would say.
I would say that most of it, though. I mean, but audiences back then were a lot more innocent and naive than folks are today, I think.
What this movie did do, at least for me, is just sort of set off my imagination. Again, what would I do in this scenario? And you find yourself relating to them, getting frustrated when they're doing all of these things wrong. Why didn't they think to check the bodies for the keys sooner? Obviously, the keys would be in someone's pocket. Stop yelling at each other and think. But I also believe it. In that scenario, and as a scenario as crazy as this, how do you keep your head on your shoulders?
Yeah, I don't know. It's, I don't know. I liked this movie a lot, but Yeah, agreed. Keeping of the shoulders.
Yeah.
Keeping of the head.
And I do think it's obviously dated. Again, there's some sort of theatricality to some of the performances, especially the newscasters. Talk very,
Quite, yeah.
And now more news on the zombie epidemic.
Which were the radio personalities of the time,
day.
though.
Absolutely, it's appropriate.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is a little bit of a disconnect.
Yes.
But I think the themes of the story are universal, and I do think that it holds up remarkably well in 2014.
Remarkably well, yes. And I do, again, I think I said this in the last episode that we shot, that I really appreciate the intellect behind things, and I appreciate subtleties a lot.
Yeah.
28 Days Later is not really subtle, but yeah, a totally different thing. But this movie had a lot of subtleties that I really liked. So.
And again, a seriously minded zombie movie.
Absolutely, seriously.
Not wall-to-wall fun. In fact,
No.
I think it has one of the most sort of shocking finales that I can remember. It's one of the big gotcha endings that comes to mind.
Yeah, quite.
So, big thumbs up on that.
Excellent.
An elite police squad is waging war against a gang of violent criminals.
Warn the others. Don't let a soul into this building.
But both the police and the criminals now face an even bigger enemy. The undead. And they don't care whose side you're on.
Okay, we are going to talk about the French film, The Horde. I think this is a little bit farther down the length as far as it's not a super seriously themed zombie movie, but it's not a completely, guts on the wall slapstick number either. It sort of finds its ground somewhere in the middle. It's like a weird hybrid of like this 90s cop thriller, The King of New York and Dawn of the Dead. And this sort of group
smacked into one.
Squished into one movie with subtitles.
Yes.
Basically this group of hard-ass cops who are getting tired of having their asses handed to them by these evil criminals decide they're going to throw the books out the window and they're going to go on a full-on assault on this building that is full of these gangsters.
Yeah.
And it's right in the middle of this conflict that all of a sudden the zombie apocalypse happens.
Yeah.
And this is a weird one in that it's not like a slow build. It really feels like someone threw a switch and all of a sudden the city was just populated with thousands of zombies.
It's true. Did they give an explanation as to why?
Not really. Basically, they looked out the window and the zombies were here.
Yeah.
And you'd think if anybody would know that this was happening, it would be police officers.
It would be the
right?
coppers.
So,
yeah.
But again, I think we're going to allow ourselves to suspend our disbelief a little bit here because the movie wants to sort of be full of adrenaline and action, and it wants to entertain you. And I think for the most part it does that. I think one of the most impressive things about this movie for me is the production values. They have a lot of zombies, and they have a lot of special effects, and not a lot of it is CG. It's all practical, real people there, and practical makeup effects. And it shows, and I applaud everybody involved for that. But I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts.
Hence the well-produced
smart zombie.
Yeah.
As it says on the DVD case, well-produced smart zombie thriller. But do you agree, Karen? Do you agree with that summation of The Horde?
I would agree. I do differ in the fact that I thought there was no comedy in this. Like, I thought that they actually meant it to be a really serious zombie movie. That's the feel that I got from it.
Yeah, I sort of felt Michael Bay meets zombies a little bit, but maybe I'm wrong.
Michael Bay. Yeah, okay, I can see that. Okay. It's not a bad movie. It's again, it's very gory. Which I don't really appreciate. So I'm probably not the best person for this movie.
That seems like a weird, I'm not going to say hypocrisy, I don't know what the right word is.
Absolutely.
You like zombie movies,
I do.
and yet violence troubles you. And yet in most zombie movies, people get pulled apart and eaten alive by zombies.
It's very true, but in other movies, there is an element of imagination. This one, it seemed just bleh. There it is. Yeah. I think that's what I have the problem with, is it didn't let my imagination run away with itself.
I think that this movie is sort of built of other borrowed elements in a lot of ways.
Quite.
I guess
Yeah.
say, like, the renegade cops, the gangsters that are forced to align themselves with the police officers and sort of prove to have their own morality after all.
Yeah.
All elements that we've seen before.
Sure.
I mean, it's not necessarily a knock against it, but I mean, there's nothing here that's going to shock you.
No.
I think the closest thing to a problem I have is that one of the main characters, I don't know the name of her character, but the female police officer who loses her lover very shortly into the movie, is basically on cold vendetta mode through the whole movie.
Freaking cold.
And I want to like her, and I want to say she's a badass survivor chick, but there's ice running through her veins. So by the end of it, I'm utterly torn whether or not I should be cheering for her. And if I'm not cheering for her, who do I cheer for in this scenario?
Yeah.
And if I don't cheer for anyone, what do I do but wait for the credits?
Well, it was these gang members who killed
her boyfriend
Her
in front
boyfriend.
of her. Yeah.
Right. But then they go on to repeatedly
Save her
aid in saving her life. And yet, you said it, she's freaking cold.
Yeah. Once she's made safe away from these guys, she basically executes one of them quite coldly. Thank you for all your help. Now you're dead.
Yes.
And I guess I would get past that, but she didn't even seem fazed anymore when her fellow police officers were falling.
No.
One fellow in particular clearly sacrifices himself to save the group.
Yep.
And, you get the idea in her head, he was stupid for doing it, Like, she wins no points to her, you know? Basically, the moment that her lover died, the world could burn as far as she is concerned.
Exactly.
And it's kind of a strange thing. I needed somebody who I was like, maybe not necessarily a hero, but somebody that I related to that I was like, I want you to get out of this scenario.
Which there really wasn't.
There really wasn't. By about the 2/3 of the way through the movie, there was nobody left that was like, I guess you want them to survive, and that the idea of being eaten alive is a bad way to go, but these are not good people. None of them are really, heroic.
True. And I mean, then again, like where she is concerned, she's kind of... Okay, yes, so she has this cold, dead to the world reaction.
Yeah.
Kind of completely opposite of the chick in The Living Dead.
Right.
But at the same time, she's, I think, so forlorn that she has basically condemned herself to death. Yes, she was fighting tooth and nail to get away from these zombies, but with her executing the guy at the end... You need people to survive in something like this. You just do.
Counterproductive. That
Absolutely
was another living person with a gun who could help you get through the day.
Exactly, yeah. And she fucked herself.
Yeah.
Really.
And maybe she would come out of that emotional fog later that day and realize that was a bad mistake.
Yeah.
The other track to take on it, and this would be more cynical, and it is a pretty cynical movie, I think. The fact that she shuts off emotionally actually helps her to survive.
It does.
What initiates the attack is an emotional response. They've lost a lot of their friends trying to fight this drug cartel, and they finally decide, screw the rules, we're going to go clean house.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
Yeah.
That was an emotional knee-jerk reaction. You don't do that. So maybe, and I don't know this, but maybe the track the movie is taking is that although she does turn ice cold and she does, shut herself off and seems callous to the people who are trying to help her survive, that ability for her to shut off her emotions is part of the reason that she was able to get through it. So I don't know.
True, but like I said, for how long?
For how long?
She
and where do you end
destroyed
up?
all of her allies.
And what's left of her at the end of this?
Well,
She's no longer a cop. She's
Yeah.
not really... Well, I guess she's a criminal now. But the whole world is this zombie apocalypse.
So maybe that was the point of this movie. Like, in dire circumstances, all humanity is lost.
Yeah. Well, and you were talking about movies where nobody survives. I mean... I guess she lives in this, but I don't really count her among one of the survivors. As far as I'm concerned, everybody died in this.
Yeah.
And Night of the Living Dead as well. Not too many people came out ahead at the end of that.
Really not. No, exactly. Like, yeah, I don't know.
But again, what I really want to give a lot of points to, and what I think if you're a fan of zombies, what we see a lot of times is really low-budget zombie movies made by people with a lot of heart but no means.
Yeah.
And sometimes they can pull one out and it really works, but I hunger for big-budget zombie action, which is why I watch terrible movies like the Resident Evil franchise.
Sure.
They're not good movies.
They're not good.
They're just not good movies, and I can't look myself in the eye in the mirror afterwards. I have to go read a book afterwards to apologize to my brain. But I like big budget zombie, and this movie brings that to the table. There's a sequence in a parking garage where it seemed like they must have had a couple of hundred full-on zombie extras surrounding this guy on top of a car, and just a fantastic sequence. And there are great sort of action beats to the movie. I feel like I've been really negative about the movie. I don't think it's a bad movie necessarily. I just think it's there is some problems to it, but it's entertaining. It's not going to bore you at all. It will take you through the movie, and it does. The French sort of were given this reputation for really knowing how to handle horror movies, and I think, my script problems aside, as far as the production and the approach to the subject, big points.
Big points, but I also think you nailed it on the head when you said earlier that you need somebody relatable.
Yeah.
And this just didn't have it. So for me, that's a massive point against it. Yes, hundreds and hundreds of zombies, which was excellent to see. But if you don't have that human factor, what is the point?
And I think that's why I didn't take it as seriously as maybe it wanted me to.
Yeah.
Because this did sort of feel sort of like the kinetic, like I say, Michael Bay action movies. Sure. Bad boys versus zombies, and the quippy one-liners and the sort of...
Very quippy.
Yeah. Testosterone to the movie and the energy to it.
Yeah.
It sort of had that cops and robbers,
It was cops and robbers.
But that sort of angry young man action movie, that type of feel to it for the first few minutes, and then they brought in the zombies. So it works more than it doesn't. And,
it does.
I would encourage people to seek it out. I mean, it's not one of the more obvious titles on this list. But I think this is another tough list in that for the most part I liked all of these movies. I know we're going to disagree on the level, but
we are.
For the most part I liked all of these movies, and I always find that's harder to make my list.
Yeah.
If I like them all.
Yeah.
So there's no obvious number 1 or number 6 to sort of thin the herd.
In your eyeballs.
In my eyeballs.
Yeah, my eyeballs see differently.
Well, shall we move on to Cemetery Man then?
If you don't want the dead coming back to life, why don't you just kill the living?
Smoking is not allowed in here!
What are you doing on the floor, sister?
Just praying.
Delamonte, wait! There's another maniac on the loose. He already shot 3.
Somebody's stolen my crimes.
Make a wish.
I want you to fall in love with me.
And so it was we came to Cemetery Man, a.k.a. Della Morte dell'Amore, of love and of death. This concerns a caretaker of a cemetery and his roommate / master companion assistant relationship slave Nagi, who's this very rotund, squat, strange Asperger's dude. I don't know what his story is. He's they are in care of the Balfour Cemetery, and he has discovered that a lot of bodies, after about a week of being in the ground, come back to life. Yeah, and he's taken it as part of his job to blow out their brains and rebury them as sort of part of his daily routine. Yep. To sort of break down the plot much beyond that, it gets a little difficult. Because this is based off of comic books, I do think that it's a very sort of episodic movie that we're treated to here. This thing happens, and then the next day this thing happens, and then the next day this thing happens. So it's kind of a hard thing to break down plot-wise. But basically, he's been the caretaker of the cemetery for a long time, and he's desperate to make a change in his life. Be that finding love or just escaping this world that he is in. It stars Rupert Everett. K2. Let me know what you thought of Cemetery Man.
Okay, well, first of all, as I stated to Larry before, I am surprised Rupert Everett ever got another acting gig after this movie.
Yeah.
This, in my opinion, was a horrible freaking movie. Again, just not my genre. It's supposed to be a funny zombie romp, which, yeah, I don't like that.
Okay.
I like my serious zombies. And the fact that these zombies are so different. Like, they can talk, and they can love, and have sex, and all that kind of stuff. That's crap.
No.
Yeah.
There is a weird dream logic to this movie.
Absolutely.
It's not accidental. And I do think there are elements that are meant to be funny, and I do think that there are elements that are meant to be horrific.
Yep.
And how it all sort of fits together. It's a buffet of a movie. You sort of take what you want and leave the rest.
Yeah.
For me, I think it works. There are things that I would warn people about before they came in. And I didn't warn you beforehand because I figured we'll just let K2 think what she thinks.
Right.
First of all, for me, the fact that it's an Italian production, but in order to get international rights, they would overdub a lot of the actors' voices. So they would,
very poorly, I might add.
They would play the roles in Italian,
Yep.
and their voices would be ratcheted in, dubbed in, seemingly very sloppily, you're right.
Extremely
it's
sloppily,
like so
yeah.
much care is put into making this movie, but once it gets into the distribution, they're like, all right, throw in an English language track, just as undelicately as possible.
Yeah.
You know, I would rather watch this movie in subtitles, had
Me
it
too.
the option. But
I think I would have appreciated it much more.
But for
Maybe.
people who watch Italian zombie movies, people are kind of used to this thing, or some of the old Argento movies. Dario Argento, much the same way. So people who are familiar with this world of movies will probably know that coming in and will be sort of ready to take that. It can be a deal breaker to some people.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I would say, because it was almost an audience loser for me, was some of the sex in the movie. Particularly the first love scene with Rupert Everett and this woman, which happens on the grave of her husband.
Who woke up dead and tried to rape her? Is that what happened?
Well, their tryst is interrupted when he erupts from the ground
right.
and attacks her. But
Yeah.
such a long story. But the main character is sort of doing a lot of self-exploration. And I think in a way this is a weird, almost philosophical, almost meditative sort of study on the male psyche.
And how they like necrophilia.
Well, she wasn't a zombie when he was having sex with her at that moment.
No, sure. Yet.
I mean, we can get into that, but there's 3 basically romances, if you can call them that, that he encounters in this movie.
Yeah.
And they're interestingly all played by the same actress. Now, is this because he sees all women to be the same, or is like his ideal supposed to be this woman? Why is that actress used? I have no idea.
Because she has gigantic boobs.
Yes, but again, in Italian cinema, having some nudity in your films and having gigantic boobs, that's par for the course. I'm not being glib, Karen. Like, that's just the way to...
True.
I'm not defending it necessarily
No.
either. It's just, especially with the Italian cinema, sex is part of the menu.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily part of the group that we should, hide our eyes from sex. I always think it's funny when I'm watching...
the sex.
Yeah, when I'm watching shows with my son, and I don't watch Cemetery Man with my son or anything, but like some teenage boy, starts talking about how he likes a girl, and then the girl walks in the room. My son will run out of the room, like he's scared of it.
Yeah.
Violence bothers him way less than the idea of kissy face. And I do think that there is a bit of truth in the perception that the European people are a lot more open to sexuality.
Way more open. We are quite repressed.
And I'm not about that. I say let's throw down get rid of this repression. I like sex. Sorry, that's where it is.
Sure.
I just do.
No.
But that said, we are treated to a very graphic and not completely set up sex sequence very early in the movie. And I gotta tell you, the first time I watched the movie, I was like, oh, it's one of these movies.
Yeah.
And I can see how that could sort of put somebody off course for the rest of the movie. And part of me honestly worried that would happen with you when you watched this movie. I think it's beautifully shot. I think some of the camera shots are actually amazing. The top down when she throws the clump of dirt down on her husband's coffin.
Yeah.
Or the camera panning through the rings of the phone when he goes to answer the phone. There's some really obviously talented filmmakers here, and they are trying to do an examination, I think, either of male psyche or some sort of philosophical meditation on our purpose. And I think possibly something is lost in the translation.
I think
but
a lot
I find
is
the movie
lost.
kind of fascinating.
Okay, well, I mean, as far as the whole sex is concerned, and we can talk about examining the male psyche
Right.
as well, and probably a very young male. Part of the problem that I had with this was sex is good, sure, absolutely. But when you have things attacking specific female body parts for apparently no reason, there was some attacking of the boobs, and I believe there was a vagina attack as well.
A vagina attack?
A vagina attack?
I know she did take one bite down there. Rupert Everett gets bitten as well by her separately, but I'd have to rewatch.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that says, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't.
There's something really ugly about that. That
it
they
was.
would specifically attack that.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point? You had to have like a lot of points were lost for those specific scenes.
Again, with
unnecessary.
I think it's ridiculous that they would be having sex on the gravesite. Like, just as a conceit, that is ridiculous. The thing coming out of the ground and attacking her and making it personal by attacking her sexuality, I guess I can sort of buy. But I think the ugly sexuality, frankly, comes later in the movie. Because as crazy it was that they chose to have sex there, I do agree that they were both attracted to each other and into it. So different strokes for different folks.
Sure.
Later on, when he starts going crazy and becomes obsessed with finding his new path or his new love, that's when it gets complex. And that's why I say we're all hung up on this first sex scene. This is really the first 10-15 minutes of the movie. We move on to another chapter. Nagi has a love affair with a severed head.
Yes, he does. Go Nagi. Yes. And again,
it's not graphically explored. I don't want to scare anybody away from it, but this is another element of the movie that Nagi, and again, he's not about the sex. He's clearly about the person, right? He
absolutely
loves her.
About the person. Yes. Yeah, I don't know. It's
in a way, Nagi is expressing what the cemetery man doesn't have. I mean, he sort of sees this woman on an altar that will fix his life because he has a love in his life and someone
both
to
figuratively
worship.
and actually. Yes,
whereas as Nagi is not so much about putting this up on a figure, it's just finding somebody to share his life with.
Yes.
As absurd as it is that it's a head that seems to be able to move around of its own accord.
True, but I think Nagi has the better of it because he himself, given his mental faculties, is, that's the innocence of love in a disturbed form. But, I mean, I think that type, his expression of what he feels is a lot more innocent and nice than what Rupert Everett.
And you see him constantly dismissing Nagi as a buffoon.
Absolutely.
But in a way, Nagi has a better handle on things than
Way
he does.
better handle, yeah.
And again, I think that's kind of clever.
I agree with that. That is a clever move. Yeah.
And the fact that Nagi doesn't say a line of dialogue until the end of the movie. Another interesting excursion in this movie, and again, I'm just grabbing random pieces of the movie, but Death shows up. The Grim Reaper himself. And I think in a very beautifully realized scene, sweeping leaves and burning newspaper clippings that sort of conjure themselves into this visage of death, who scolds the graveyard keeper saying, "Stop killing the dead are mine. If you want to kill somebody, kill the living."
Yeah.
And as to whether or not this death was real or just in his head, we don't know. We kind of have to sort of put this together ourselves.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think, it sounds random and sort of David Lynchian. I do think all the scenes are connected. I believe they are of a world, and I believe they are sort of pointing us in the same direction. I think that, like I said, something's lost in the translation. I'm not getting all of it, but I'm getting enough of it that I really do find the movie kind of fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you read more into the movie than I could.
Okay.
I just had a lot of problems with this movie. It's, again, not my type of movie. And I mean, there was a lot of really offensive actions towards women in this movie, is what I felt. But again, this is kind of what makes this a good conversation.
Yeah.
Me being female, you being male. So
Well, and again, there is definitely that. The third she that he encounters, I think, is the one that's the most offensive. I was not offended by necessarily, other than the stupidity plot-wise of them having sex on a grave, which this is like, that's
kind of
sexy.
icky.
Yeah. My husband was buried here 2 days ago, but that's where I want to have sex with you.
Exactly.
No, I didn't buy that. But the third woman who's associated with the mayor, who basically first talks him into getting a vasectomy or basically destroying his sexual equipment because she's not about sex.
Yeah.
So he does this so he can be with her. And then she comes back and says, oh, actually, no, I've since been raped and now I like sex.
Yeah.
That to me is just like, and again, when I hear that line, I'm like, is that really the line? Or did we...
I would love to think
some sort
that
of
that
translation?
Is not
because...
Actually...
I didn't like, and again, and of course his reaction is to go on a psychotic rampage, you know, because every time he tries to achieve love, it blows up in his face and makes things worse.
Yeah.
And his only way to deal with it is to express violence.
Yeah.
And again, that sort of goes into the male psychological angle of the movie.
Which is extremely unfortunate. Like, if that is actually part of the male psyche and excluded, you of course.
Well, no, I'm just...
But I mean...
It's explored. I mean, I'm not saying that every man is guilty of it, but I'm saying that there is something to it that is...
Even recently in the news that, and I can't remember his name right now, but that guy who said that men raping little girls is natural.
Yes.
Like,
at least
what
he's
the
not raping
fuck?
a
Are you
man.
kidding
That
me?
would be completely weird.
Yeah.
But if you're raping women, well, okay.
That's, part of why. And I mean, also part of the fact that, you know, she's dead. She's a zombie. And, you know, that goes to the whole women as objects.
Yeah. Again, I think I interpret that zombie scene differently than you do. When she comes back to life, basically she gets bit by her zombie husband.
Mm-hmm.
He takes her to the ossuary and he shoots her because he believes that she is dead.
Yeah.
What happens, though, is that he doesn't actually... She wasn't actually dead when that happened.
And then
he killed her when that happened. Yeah. And because it didn't actually get her brain, she then came back as a zombie and attacked him. But when he saw her, he wasn't expecting her. And that's why he reacted so big, because he realized when he killed her that time, she was actually not a zombie.
Yeah.
He shot her when she was alive.
Yeah.
And that's why he basically allows himself to be bitten by her at that point. Because it's not... Anyway... Again, there's a lot going on in the movie.
There is.
And I do want to just talk briefly about the very ending of the movie, because again, I didn't know how to take the movie, and it was getting crazier and crazier. We get a spree killing that his friend ends up taking the rap for, and finally he can't take it anymore, and he just wants to flee this place, this madness.
Yeah.
And he and Nagi get in a car and they drive basically to the end of the world.
Yeah.
The road drops off, and there's nothing left behind. And after like a brief car accident, Nagi is wounded and looks at his master, because they do seem to have this weird sort of master-slave or master-pet relationship, and says, I want to go home now.
Yeah. And
they get in the car, and they drive back to the cemetery.
Yeah.
I found it weirdly profound. I can't even explain to you why, but...
Yeah, no, I can see how you would have that take. I mean, I think that was probably one of the better parts of the movie for me, anyway. For in terms of thinker pieces, it was kind of profound. Like, you know, whatever it is, home is home.
Yeah. Anyway, Cemetery Man, Della Morte, Della More, of love and of death. I think we can be agreed. It's interesting.
Yes.
I think it's interesting good. You think it's interesting bad.
Yes.
But that's okay. We can't agree on everything.
It's true.
This is Flight Engineer, Lieutenant Brian Murphy, sole survivor of military evacuation flight Lima, November 260.
Our orders are to be at the roadblocks, to stop the spread by shooting the infected.
But I left to find my son. Are you bitten?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, so now we're going to go over to Africa.
Yes.
For a film directed by the Ford brothers called The Dead. Interestingly to note, there's a sequel to this movie that hopefully we'll be seeing on video soon.
Yes.
And it's basically a similar idea, but it's set in India instead of in Africa. We have basically a military fellow. He's working with the National Guard or some sort of relief agency, whose plane goes down, and he comes out of it seemingly the sole survivor.
Yeah.
And basically the movie is like a road odyssey as he sort of travels these landscapes in Africa populated by these slow-moving Romero-style zombies, which I appreciate.
Yes. That was a good aspect of this movie.
He's an engineer, and he wants to find a vehicle that he can fix or fly and get the hell home, as anyone would.
Yeah.
He encounters an AWOL soldier from the African Guard who has run from his squad in order to find his son. His village had been raided by the zombies, his wife had died, but his son was missing, and he was hoping to catch up with him. These two guys sort of find each other and attempt to survive this horrible plague.
Yeah.
Again, that's basically the plot. It's a fairly simple survival story.
Yeah,
and
very much.
In a way, I say that as a plus. The situation is dire. Live through it. And for me, it does a really good job of bringing back the slow zombies.
Yes, it does.
I was talking about earlier how if you stay in one place for too long, the danger just creeps in. And they do that so well here.
They do.
The car gets jammed in a pothole, and the longer it takes for them to get out of that pothole, the more that danger gets closer and closer, you know?
Yeah.
Anytime they stop anywhere for too long, these people start crawling out of the woods.
Yes.
And it makes the slow zombies scary again. So if for no other reason, I'm a fan of The Dead for that. What did you think of The Dead?
I was happily surprised by this movie.
Okay.
I'd never heard of it before, but watching it, it is a fantastic movie. I agree absolutely about the slow-moving zombies in this case. I think they did a really good job, especially, you know, once the zombies get fairly close, then they kind of lunge at you.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is a really good thing. And what I liked about this movie as compared to something like The Horde, this was a really good example of opposite sides cooperating and collaborating to survive, which I think has to happen in order to survive.
Sooner or later, survival should trump any rivalry or animosity.
Absolutely, yeah. And the zombies looked freaking cool in this.
They really did.
They really do. They got like icy eyeballs. Fantastic.
Yeah. I think the only thing that is a little bit rocky to me, and I don't want to be too mean about it, I think that the performances
of the lead actor was horrible.
Horrible's
one of the
overstating.
actors. One of the actors.
Yeah, our main character, the National Guard gentleman.
Rob Freeman.
Yeah. I don't think he's wall-to-wall horrible. I think that he's good in some scenes and weaker in others. There are prolonged sequences through the movie where he actually doesn't speak, where he's just basically in survival mode trying to get through it.
Which guy? The American guy?
The American guy.
Yeah, he was horrible.
Yeah. Again, I think horrible's overstating it.
Okay, sure.
I think that he's a new actor, and I think that he does better with sort of the physicality of the role. It's sort of making me believe that he's on his last tether surviving the situation.
Yeah.
Some of the dialogue is where it gets a little bit rockier for me.
Yeah, quite. The other guy, Prince David.
Yeah, I think he did a fine job.
He was fantastic. Yeah, I liked him a lot.
You really felt the weight of the situation for him.
Yeah.
Not just the fact that his son was missing and that his wife had died, but that he was seeing his entire world basically disintegrate.
Yeah, absolutely. And he still kept his composure, which I think, you know, has a lot to do with probably his training and the fact that he is in whatever guard. Yeah, I quite liked it. And the reason I don't like the main guy, the American guy, is, and I can't get too far into this because other friends listening to this will probably know who I'm talking about.
Okay.
But he reminds me of somebody I find somewhat repugnant.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So some of this might be a little personal.
Absolutely
baggage.
personal. Totally
Fair
personal.
enough.
Yeah.
Things will happen.
Yeah, for sure. But yes, the other guy was fantastic. Yeah.
We all have our personal things. It's
Yeah.
sort of like with me and Emilio Estevez.
Oh,
if Emilio Estevez
Emilio.
is in a movie,
Yeah.
it's minus half a percentage point just for his presence.
That's like me and Matthew McConaughey. I freaking hate him.
Who might be winning an Oscar as
Yeah,
we speak
that's
tonight.
crap.
This is Oscar night
That's
for
crap.
Matthew
12 Years a
McConaughey.
Slave should win. Seriously.
Anyway, we're talking about the dead.
Yeah.
We got a little sidetracked there.
The dead.
I think the reason these two guys bond, other than the fact that they're in a survival position, he basically agrees to drive this guy to a military base in exchange for getting his vehicle once he gets there. That's the original proposition that sort of sets them together. But they are both very good at surviving, and they're both very good at watching each other's backs.
Yeah.
And this is largely accomplished wordlessly. And I think that's where I give Freeman a pass. I think where some of the dialogue scenes, you're right, you can tell he's a new actor.
Yeah.
And that some scenes work better than others. But a lot of what is accomplished with that relationship is done silently, is done through the action and the visuals of the movie. And again, it is the visuals of the movie that I think make it sort of a distinct zombie movie. I've never really seen a movie sort of set in this landscape.
Absolutely
or
not.
a zombie
No.
movie set in this landscape.
Yeah, no,
honestly.
it was fantastic landscape, and I think just, especially when you get to like the deserty portions, it's like just the desolation speaks to what they must be feeling like.
Well, and some of these places are hard enough to survive just the environment themselves.
For sure, absolutely.
Add zombies to it,
Yeah.
But in some of these places, if you go, more than 12 hours without water, you're going to be immobile soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just basic survival is a chore, let alone trying to find your missing son who's a needle in a zombie-filled haystack.
You bet. You bet, yeah.
And sort of the crazy, almost hopeless mission that this engineer is on to find a plane to fly him to America to get back to where his people are. His journey is so epic compared to the other, but they're all both kind of equally dire and, dare I say, kind of hopeless.
Kind of hopeless. I mean, I think I empathized more with Sergeant Daniel than
the guy looking for his son.
Yeah, the guy looking for his son, just because, I mean, he was face to face with what was happening to his friends and his family and his loved ones. Yeah. And when he had to kill his grandma or a village elder,
clearly,
like that was pretty horrific. Whereas the American guy, he doesn't know.
This is all survival,
It's all survival, but I mean, it's like face to face with all of these horrors, especially on your home front. Whereas the American guy, he still has hope that his family is okay, and that everybody he knows are fine.
Yeah, it's not going well here, but we're in the third world here. This place was a hair away from chaos before the outbreak. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Sort of that American perspective on it.
You bet.
Although I don't dislike his character, but
No.
I just don't think he has the same investment with the people that he has to gun down.
Absolutely not.
And that's
absolutely
just
not
the way it would be.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's also interesting once we get to the end of the movie. The mixed ending that we are given. Is
I kind of liked it.
I like it, but it's a simultaneously happy, sad ending.
It is.
We are given.
It is. Yeah.
Because Daniel falls, the man who's on a quest to find his son, ends up getting bit.
Yeah.
And
which was sad.
It was sad.
Because I liked him.
Want to see him go.
Yeah.
And he hands this bracelet or necklace.
The necklace.
To the American and saying, if you find my son, please give him this.
Yeah.
And he does make it to the relief station, and he is standing there, but it is surrounded by zombies, and the walls are crumbling, and it's a matter of time before it all goes to hell.
Yeah. They're being attacked. Everyone around them, yeah.
Just as the walls are caving in, that this little boy walks up to him and reaches for the necklace.
Yeah.
So the little boy knows that his dad didn't forget about him, that his dad did try to find him.
Yes.
And he knew that.
Yeah.
Just in time to be eaten by
Absolutely.
zombies himself.
Yeah. Sad.
No punches pulled there.
No.
That's a bitter little pill, but I don't know, it works with the world of the movie that we were given here, and although it is sad, again, it's another bummer ending.
Yeah.
Half of these movies that we watched, pretty much everybody came out dead.
Pretty much, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a sad ending, but it also felt right. It's a weird sort of counterbalance
did feel right.
to me. You know, like, I didn't want him to die. I didn't want that little boy to die. Yeah. But if a helicopter suddenly dropped cables down and flew them off into the sunset, it just wouldn't have felt like the movie I had been watching.
No, I mean, let's face it, honestly, how long will humanity survive in a zombie apocalypse? Really?
Depends on the zombie apocalypse, but
true.
Like I say, if it's a basic Romero slow-moving zombie apocalypse, count on about half to 2/3 of the population being killed. But if it's the fast, crazy, unkillable Return of the Living Dead zombies, count on everybody being dead within a month.
Sure. And I mean, like, the ending, it's kind of death is inevitable.
Yeah.
Nobody can run from it.
Like I say, in most zombie movies, if you're alive, you're winning. The game is to stay alive as long as possible. Yeah. And I guess you can say he did that. He stayed alive as long as he possibly could.
Yeah.
And he did at least complete the errand of I mean, that little boy wasn't reunited with his father, but he at least knew that his dad had been looking for him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So sad.
Very, very sad. But yes, all in all, really big thumbs up for this movie.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I was very pleasantly surprised by this.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm glad you watched it.
Yay!
Karen, that is 6 zombie movies reviewed. So we now come to the ranking part of the equation
yes, we
here.
Do.
And as I've mentioned several times, you are my rank and review champion. You are the world champion rank and reviewer.
That's right. That's right.
So
undefeated.
I am very interested to see.
Yes.
How we rank today.
I think we will differ.
I think we will probably differ, but that's okay. And until somebody else
Yeah.
wins the prize, as far as I'm concerned, you are still
reigning
the champion. So.
Excellent. I am the reigning mushroom.
What was your least favorite of these movies and why?
Least favorite, I would have to say it was Dead Alive.
Oh wow.
Actually.
That surprises me.
Yes. Yes. Only because, I mean, it was so ridiculous. And like I said, the puppet thing kind of came into play on this one. I have issues with puppets, so I don't know. I didn't really care for it. It was really, really not my kind of movie.
Fair enough.
Yeah. That's all I have to say on that one.
All right. Number 5.
Number 5, Cemetery Man.
Okay.
I will give it that. I agree with you on some points that maybe there might have been a little more depth than I gave it credit for. But I found it, for the most part, to be exceedingly offensive and really degrading to women. And as a woman, I don't really like that. Yeah, that's all.
Okay,
yep.
Fair enough.
Next up, I would say The Horde is next. Again, it was gory, and I really, truly believe that the fact that she lost all of her humanity and there was no humanity left at the end of this film bothered me.
Right.
I think to survive in something like this, humans would have to band together. And to wipe that compassion out of the movie entirely, I think was a bad mistake.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Next up, so third, I gave it to, and I was torn on this one, but I will give it to Night of the Living Dead.
Wow.
Really, really liked this movie. Like I said, I had a really hard time. This was either going to be number 2 or number 3.
Right.
But yes, the order in my hand says it's number 3.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah, really good commentary, social commentary, very apt.
Yeah.
Still stands the test of time.
Shockingly relevant.
Absolutely relevant.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good... It speaks to human nature really, really well.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he rewrote that character in the new one. Because I think it was necessary.
Yes.
You know. Yeah. I don't know if women were like this back then. I was not alive, but yeah.
Again, I took it as just the idea of not necessarily a woman, but somebody just full on panicking. You don't see that very often in movie. Now, you could make the argument that when you do see it in movie, it tends to be a woman, and I will agree with you there. But I do think it is a completely legitimate response to this scenario.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. But, and also the fact that you said that he agreed. Yeah. So, okay, so next up, I put The Dead next.
Wow.
Because I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. I loved the zombies. I loved the fact that they bonded in a time when bonding was necessary for survival.
Yeah.
I liked that. And I liked that the American guy followed through in the end in trying to find... I don't know if he just happened upon the son.
It was kind of luck that it happened, but he kept the necklace.
He kept the necklace,
he
exactly.
was trying. You get the idea he was trying.
Yeah. Potential, or supposed enemies coming together. And I think that has to happen. And my favorite movie of all time. I don't know if I'd go that far. But one of my favorite movies of all time. I've probably seen this movie like at least 20 times, and that's not even stretching it.
Right.
Every time it's on TV, I watch it, and I own it.
Yeah.
28 Days Later.
Well put.
Fantastic movie.
Well, that's a good list, Kate,
Yes.
too. You want to hear something I think that's going to be interesting about our list? I think we've only lined up in one place.
Really?
It's true.
Is it 28 Days Later?
It is 28 Days
Yay!
Later. A little bit
Number one.
A little bit of spoilers to that, but that's where I ended up with it.
Okay.
But I'll go through these. You're still a champion, and I'm still thrilled that we did zombies together. But no, it's very different lists. Interesting to note, the last time I did zombies, it was with your brother Ryan.
Yes. Yeah.
And we also managed in that one, and I'm almost thinking that there should be a prize for this.
Yeah.
Because we did not match at all.
Really?
At no point did we
Interesting.
match at all.
Huh.
Like, we completely different lists.
Yeah.
But we all sort of agreed that we liked all the movies for the most part.
Right.
I'm guessing you didn't like all of the movies for the most part, but
Yeah.
you're not mad at me like you
I'm
were
not.
for Bug.
No, I was angry at you for a really long time for
I felt
inflicting Bug on me. But
so for me, at number 6 is The Horde.
Okay.
Great production values, and again,
Sure.
I encourage people to watch it. I'm liking all of these movies.
Yeah.
So this is not a negative review.
Okay.
Again, like we had talked about, I think that it's a problem that there's really nobody to hang your hat on as far as who do I relate to, who do I cheer for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having just that might have put this a little bit higher on the list. But,
Okay.
a good slam bam action zombie picture.
It was
and
a good
if you're
action-y.
looking to kill 90 minutes, you can do a lot worse. So there it is. Number 5, I put The Dead.
Aha.
And I think The Dead would rank higher. I do
Yeah.
think the central performance was a little bit rocky.
Yes.
But what I do love is they brought slow zombies back.
They do.
They made slow zombies scary in a way that few...
I don't think anybody has.
Yeah, few
Yeah.
new movies have done, and they
Yeah.
they stopped trying. Now they run, or
Yeah.
they have tentacles, or they these guys are very much Romero rules. They're not trying to eat your brains. They're just trying to eat you. They're slow moving, but they're everywhere.
Everywhere. And they look freaking wicked.
Yeah, and great landscapes too.
Yeah.
Again, we haven't really seen a zombie movie like that.
No.
So big points for that. It's a slower moving number than The Horde, but it has a little bit more of an emotional punch to it. Okay.
Quite a bit more. Yeah.
So to number 4 is where I bring the batshit crazy Dead Alive.
Boo hiss.
Again, I'm just saying that this movie is what it is, and
Sure.
again, for the fact that this was made for $5 or like almost no money,
Yeah.
there is a lot of ingenuity. Is it put into the purpose of just madness and depravity? Well, yes, but I do think that there's room for madness and depravity.
Sure.
And this is a different kind of zombie movie than the other ones.
Very different, yeah.
You're not going to come away thinking about this. It's not a meditative piece. This is I wonder how much blood was on set when they shot that sequence, because it looks like people were in danger of drowning.
Right.
So it is unique. You're not going to see a zombie movie like it.
True.
And like I say, it's a look into Peter Jackson before he kind of reined it in a little. And it's an interesting movie for that. So ranking all the way at number 3, Della Morte, Dell'Amore. There's stuff you got to take on the chin with this movie. Like I said, there's weird dubbing, and there's a percentage of sort of unpleasant sexuality to the movie. And I'm not going to say that there isn't, but I will say that I think it's beautifully made. I think that there's amazing visual elements to it, and that it's just a cauldron of ideas. There's all sorts of stuff that you can sort of chew on in this movie, and trying to figure it out is sort of what makes it sort of fascinating to me. It's not like a David Lynch movie in where I think each scene is random and is unrelated to the other. I feel like there's a puzzle that I could solve here, and I keep on going back to it and trying to solve it. So it ranked all the way at number 3.
That's good for you. I will never watch that again.
I really thought that was going to be at the bottom for you, so I was surprised that Dead Alive actually eclipsed it. But,
it's the puppets.
For me, this is controversial, but I gotta be honest, as far as my Desert Island zombie movie, if I could only pick one of these 6 movies, it's tough.
Really?
So, my Desert Island zombie movie would be 28 Days Later, which means that number 2 would then have to be Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
That said, I think that this is a classic movie, and that it is a classic movie for a reason.
And
that if you are into zombie movies, you have to watch it.
You
have to watch it.
Yeah.
You're not a zombie fan if you haven't seen Night of the Living Dead.
It's true. It's true.
It's the template, and it's a high watermark to break. And it seems like it should be the no-brainer number 1. It would be like making Jaws number 2 in my shark category, which I didn't do. But it just seems like Night of the Living Dead should have been number 1. But I had to go number 2 with it because Danny Boyle and his digital camera work. Introducing the world to Cillian Murphy, who I think did an amazing performance. We
Absolutely amazing.
Didn't really talk a lot about the acting in the movie, but I thought everybody uniformly was fantastic. The story was compelling and familiar at the same time. It was a lot of survivors sort of surviving a zombie landscape, which we'd seen a lot.
Yeah.
But it did it in a new, fresh way.
Yeah.
And I do think 28 Days Later is the movie that was responsible for the zombie renaissance.
I agree.
I've
completely.
always loved zombie movies, and when I first got into them, I was in high school, and I was there was maybe a zombie movie every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
We'd find a movie like Cemetery Man, and we would have to make a meal out of it, because who knows when we're going to find another zombie movie.
Yeah.
And Cemetery Man is not according to the rule book, zombie movie. Well, it's not like a global apocalypse. It's not like there's zombies in the movie, but it's about more than just that.
It's like purgatory.
Yeah, it's almost like a study of a man in purgatory, sort of forced to look at himself in the mirror and see all of his ugly crevices, or I don't know. Again, but 28 Days Later is number 1 with a bullet, and it's an amazingly made movie.
It is. It's beautifully filmed too.
Yeah. I was already a Danny Boyle fan at this point. I loved Shallow Grave. I liked Train Spotting. I wasn't as big on A Life Less Ordinary, but I did think that it was entertaining, in its own sort of superficial way. But I remember coming out of this theater, and I felt like my knees were wobbly. Getting out of the theater, I was just like, that was an utterly thrilling zombie movie. And as a person who has watched a lot of zombie movies,
that says a lot.
That does say a lot. And after this, because like I say, they did the remake of Dawn of the Dead with the fast zombies, and then they finally finally got Romero to make a big budget zombie movie with Land of the Dead, and then now it seems like every couple months there's another zombie movie.
There is.
And it's
The Walking Dead is also helping quite
The Walking Dead
a
on
bit.
TV. We've got a zombie renaissance, and I keep on thinking it's over, but it just keeps on going. It keeps on going, and Danny Boyle is a big part of the reason. I don't know if he would be complimented by that, because a lot of these zombie movies coming out are kind of shitty, but it started a tide of zombie movies, and for that I am forever grateful to it.
Yes.
Number 1,
Yeah.
28 Days Later.
I agree, absolutely. 28 Days Later. And on the whole, like, the Renaissance thing, this movie is actually thought-provoking.
Absolutely.
As well, which I cannot say about almost every other zombie movie in this bunch.
Well,
with the exception of Night
of the Living Dead, I would definitely argue that point. But definitely, and it's interesting that they're 1 and 2 on our lists, respectively. We both agree on those two. Or no, actually, you put Night of the Living Dead at 3.
I did.
Sorry.
I did.
Well, I think it was number 2, but because they gave me the most to chew over, and they delivered the goods as a zombie horror movie. So, accomplishing one of those two things is good. Getting both of them at the same time.
Difficult.
Well played.
Yeah. Very nice.
And then it was time for the Jerry Awards. And this the 21st episode of Rank and Review.
Yes.
21 episodes. I'm feeling all grown up.
Congratulations.
Why, thank you. We have 4 categories with which to give out. We have Gross Out, Performance, Death, and What the Fuck Moment. Do you have a preference on where you want to start there?
Let's go in order.
Alright. For Gross Out.
Gross Out.
In The Dead, our main character, Rob Freenan, gets a bunch of brains in his face. A zombie gets shot in front of him, and he just wears all of this guck right in his face. Yeah, that's pretty gross. The much-discussed ear in the pudding sequence in Dead Alive. Also, basically, entire large swaths of Dead Alive could be included in Gross Out. Pretty much all of it. They seem to be just jumping up and down on your gag reflex for the entire movie.
Quite.
So, I'm going to say the zombie feast sequence in the original Night of the Living Dead. I think when you, especially in '67 or whatever, when you went into the theater and you saw Night of the Living Dead, actually seeing people rend meat off of bones
pretty
was
disturbing.
Probably pretty disturbing.
Especially to those sensitive eyeballs.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed, one of them actually eats a mouse in one scene.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Yucky.
Interesting.
And then I just called the zombies plus sex plus violence theme in Della Morte Dell'Amore. It's interesting. We've talked about this before, but sex and zombie movies just don't seem to marry well.
They don't.
In a survival situation, I mean, I guess you want to repopulate the world, but everybody seems to be like covered in gore and dirt and grime, and so preoccupied with the fact that everybody that they know and loved has died, and that their death is imminent at any moment, to really feel like hitting on anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
But
then again, why not? You're gonna die anyway.
Yeah, I guess. I certainly would understand that perspective.
Although the recent cow fuckers that were caught, bad. I don't think anyone.
I didn't hear about the cow fuckers.
Yeah, 2 guys were filmed trying to have sex with cows. Finland, maybe?
Oh. I'm proud to hear that it's not a local story.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Who knows what they do in Finland? Anyway, of those, well, we can add that one. Of these 5 gross out moments, Finnish people fucking cows.
Right.
Zombie sex, zombie feast, ear in the pudding, or brains in the face.
On that one, hands down, absolutely ear in pudding.
Hey.
Because that one gives me an actual physical shudder. When I think about it, and even just talking about it right now, I'm just like, ugh, just gross.
That is disgusting.
It was nasty.
Well, Dead Alive has won a Jerry Award. Your least favorite of these movies is an award-winning film, though.
Not necessarily a positive thing there, but...
For best performance, I want to say Cillian Murphy for 28 Days Later. I don't know if this is his very first movie, but it's definitely the first time I saw him.
Me too.
And he carries the movie, and I think he does a really good job. You believe, the stakes of the scenario. And he has that heartbreaking scene where he finally makes it home and finds out that his parents have committed suicide.
Yeah. And with that picture of him as a little boy, sad.
There's 2 dead bodies laying on a bed with a picture of their son who they have left for dead in a hospital.
Yeah.
And his reaction to it right away there is like, even if this movie goes south for the rest of it, you were a good actor. And
absolutely.
That was so, Cillian Murphy for 20 Days Later. I wanted to mention Dwayne Jones, the lead in Night of the Living Dead. One of the other interesting things, and what I will give Romero a lot of credit to, is that the casting of Dwayne Jones, they didn't cast him because he was a black actor.
Mm-hmm.
They cast him because he was the best actor.
He was a good actor. Yeah.
The fact that he was, black gave the movie maybe a little bit more weight and a little bit more social commentary that it might have otherwise obviously had, but I think he did a really good job.
Perhaps unknowingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did a really good job. So
he did.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I wanted to nominate him. Timothy Baum, he is the lead in Dead Alive, and I can't imagine what it would be like to star in that movie. There's sequences, especially the lawnmower sequence, where it really does seem like he's gasping for air because of the sheet of blood that is being spilled over his face. And the amount of real prosthetic special effects he was dealing with. There's no CG in this movie. This is all real deal special effects. So, and last but not least, for the performance category, Prince Daniel Osai, I believe, if I'm saying that name correct. He played one of the leads in The Dead, the father looking to reunite with his son.
Yeah.
And a lot of the trauma is just right in his face and his eyes. It's a good performance, but you really feel like this is somebody who's lived through some hell.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
It all just comes out really well done. So, of those 4 names, do you have a pick for Best Actor?
See, that's a really hard one.
Yeah.
Again, 28 Days Later, my favorite. Loved the acting from everybody in that movie. Prince Daniel, he did convey some really great emotion in his expressions. Ben, Night of the Living Dead, again, fantastic, especially for the time and the fact that they didn't have a lot of CG and they didn't have a lot of actual zombie person interaction. Ben.
All right.
Done.
Dwayne Jones for Night of the Living Dead. I'm not going to fight that one at all. I've got lots of nominations for the best death category because there's a lot of death being dealt in these movies. There is a lot of death.
Yeah, quite.
And I've got 2 nominations for 28 Days Later. The first being Brendan Gleeson, the father figure who gets a droplet of the infected blood in his eye and ends up being gunned down by the military blokes.
Right.
It's just a heartbreaking moment, and it is that moment in the movie where it's the 2 halves of the movie sort of split.
Yeah.
There's this part of the movie is over, and now we're entering the next.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, little part of my heart broke when he went down, even though you knew
and
it
his
was
daughter.
coming. Speaking of Ben from Night of the Living Dead,
yeah,
and one of the biggest fuck you audience moments in film history, Ben, after surviving the horrendous Night of the Living Dead, crawls out of the basement, which he had been so dead set against living in or boxing himself in, and peeks out the window, only to be gunned down.
That's right.
By a bunch of guys who are coming and cleaning out zombies. So shooting first, asking questions later.
Pointless death for surviving.
Another one for the fire. The credits roll as Ben's body is being dragged with a hook to a bonfire.
Yeah.
Fucking ouch, you know. I would just love to have been in a theater when this was first airing to see the faces of the people when they came out. The car top shootout, I'm calling it, in the HORDE, where one of the police members who's been bit decides to distract the horde of zombies in a parking lot. And he stands up on top of this parked car and basically fends off the wave for as long as he can, which is a surprisingly long time.
It is surprising.
He does well.
Yes. They don't have a very good reach.
But, this is one of those good heroic deaths that you tend to see a lot in zombie movies. Some person bravely sacrificing themselves for the group.
That's right.
And again, I'm going to mention Prince David Osai, Daniel from The Dead.
Yeah.
He gets bit. He does get to have his little soliloquy before he dies and hand over the necklace. But you really feel the weight of that loss in the movie. You know?
Yeah.
And the better actor of the two would die.
It's true. It's true.
Again, I feel like I've been really mean to that Freeman guy, and I do think that he's good enough. But I think that if we had a really much stronger actor in that role, it would have bumped it up even higher.
Yeah.
And then I have the Lawnmower Massacre in in Dead Alive.
Yeah.
With Timothy Baum cutting a swath through the zombies in his house with the lawnmower. Really spectacular stuff. And then, last but not least, I have Revenge in the Rain from 28 Days Later, when Cillian Murphy lures the military guys out to the guard post and takes on, I believe, 4 armed military guys with nothing but a sharp piece of metal.
It's true.
So that's a lot of nominations there, but who's going to win it for Best Death?
This is hard. I think I might actually split it.
Okay, tie?
Just for sheer volume, the lawnmower.
Again,
Absolutely
Dead Alive
the
winning
lawnmower.
another Jerry.
You know, yeah, that is, like, he took out so many zombies, and it was so bloody, and like you said, the actor, like, having to stand on
body parts
in order to keep standing without slipping in, like, the inches and inches, or we're in Canada, centimeters and centimeters of blood on the floor. That was pretty cool. And for feeling, the one that hit me the most was the dad in
Daniel.
28 Days Later.
Oh, the dad, Brendan Gleeson.
Yeah, Brendan Gleeson. One, because he was so fiercely protective of his daughter right up until the end.
Yeah.
Even to the point where he had to physically push her away.
From him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that was quite dramatic.
Yeah.
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 All right. Well,
Hackers.
I'm not gonna argue about those. I gotta say that part of me is pleased that you've given 2 Jerry Awards to Dead Alive. I think you might have liked that movie more than you really do admit.
I think I may be a little bit in denial.
It was disgusting and repellent.
It
and
was
part
memorable.
Of me liked it.
It was memorable. I will give it that. Yeah.
Yeah, it sticks with you.
Unlike The Horde, which I didn't find very memorable, but, you know,
It
still,
entertained. Yeah.
meh.
One more Jerry Award to give up with, and then I will let you go. Thank you so much for coming back.
Pleasure.
And
Enjoyable.
I know that we're going to do at least one more because I've
Yeah.
given you 6 more movies, which is thrilling.
That's right.
Yay.
Yep.
For the Jerry Award for What the Fuck moment,
Ugh.
I have the French policewoman killing the gangster at the end of The Horde. They'd been working together. Her life had been saved many times over. They're finally away
Yeah.
from danger. And so she does the wrong thing.
Absolutely.
And executes the guy.
Very disappointing for humanity right there.
I was really... I mean, I'll give them this. I was surprised by that ending.
I was as
I
well.
really thought that she was going to maybe, like, bring the gun up and think to shoot him, but not do it. But she fucking kills the guy. So.
That's right.
The sequence, and really the whole movie could be called a what the fuck moment, but in Cemetery Man there's a sequence where a woman is being eaten by her zombie boyfriend, and she gives the line, "I can be eaten by whomever I want."
Yes.
That's when I knew I was really watching something that was off its rocker.
High class. High class action right there. Yeah.
From Dead Alive, if you want to give Dead Alive its 3rd Jerry Award of the night, I kick ass for the Lord. There's a sequence where a priest all of a sudden out of nowhere has mad ninja skills, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere that sort of has a very sudden shocking death. Again, they keep throwing stuff at you with Dead Alive. You can say what you will, it is not boring.
No.
And again, speaking of Dead Alive, the mother zombie. We didn't really get into the Freudian aspects of some of
super Freudian. Hello.
Some of the stuff that has to happen, and the hero's journey that Timothy Baum's character goes through, and the labyrinth that he must, solve, and the Minotaur he must slay is his own mother, and he ends up literally inside his own mother, hacking his way out to freedom.
Hello, what's your name? Mine's Edible.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello.
This is not subtle, and I do not think it is accidental either.
No.
So I have to give big points for the mother zombie, just on scale of, wow, they went there. So what the fuck? Those are my nominations for WTF.
And the last is the winner.
A 3-time award-winning Jerry Awards for Dead Alive.
Yeah, I mean... Now that I have a little time to think about it and review the movie, I might have changed my decision a little bit.
Maybe Cemetery Man should have been at the bottom.
Maybe it should have been at the bottom. But yeah, I was entirely grossed out pretty much throughout the whole Dead Alive movie.
Yes.
Which is not a good thing in my books. But yeah, the consuming and the the whole mother-son thing was a little...
It's a weird line because the movie is crazy and insane and depraved, but you know what it's not? It's not stupid.
It's not stupid.
Clearly a really capable filmmaker made this crazy movie.
Yes.
So it does. It walks that line of being at once amazingly well executed while at once, crazy.
Yeah.
You have to people were reading this pages of script. Nobody went over to Peter Jackson and said, You sure about this? Who's your audience here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definite. So I guess in terms of juries, Dead Alive is the winner.
Dead Alive is the big winner today.
Is the big winner. Yeah, surprising.
Karen, thank you so much for
pleasure.
coming back to my podcast. Is there anything that you would like to push on the interwebs? You want to tell the kids about yourself or your world before I let you go?
I like zombies.
I like zombies too.
Yeah.
And I hope to have you back. You are still, as I said, the reigning rank and review champion.
Reigning mushroom.
And shall be for a while.
Excellent.
Episode 21 has come to an end, but if you would like to voice your own opinion on these movies, please do. You can write me at rankandreview@gmail.com. That's ranknreview@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook at Rank and Review on Facebook, so check us out there, like the page, comment. Please tell your friends about the podcast. Thank you so much for listening.